Hello and welcome to another Franchise Hockey Manager stream. My name is Adam. I'm the community manager of Franchise Hockey. With me, as always, and not pictured on your screen, is FHM producer Jeff. Say hi, Jeff.
Hey, everybody.
And we are back with It Lives, the Cincinnati Stingers 1979-1980 WHA season. Jeff, the WHA lives to fight another day.
Yep.
You have started off Cincinnati terribly, though, as we are under 500. What's going on?
Well, I guess we should go back and explain if somebody's new to this. What we've done here is instead of the 1979 WHA NHL merger, we've that hasn't happened in our game. We turned that off, and we've gone ahead and are keeping the WHA alive. So the NHL has a competing league getting into the 1980s. And we did do a little bit of expansion. So we're assuming the leagues wouldn't have stayed with what they had if this had actually happened. So we've added Houston back to the WHA, so they're up to 8 teams again. I think we're going to do a little bit more expansion next year too, and maybe split it back into 2 divisions as well. We'll see about that. And the NHL, we put New Jersey in a couple of years early, and you can see there. But the Colorado Rockies, who would move to New Jersey, are also still around. So Colorado will be keeping its team through the 80s, and New Jersey is entirely separate. They actually, oops, what is that? Oh, it's showing up as Brooklyn. Have to fix that. Don't know how that happened. Might as well just do that quickly. They were in East Rutherford at this point. There we go. Fixed. And
Right.
the NHL expansion draft was actually pretty kind to the Devils. They actually really loaded up on forwards, got a lot of guys out of Montreal. There wasn't a restriction on the number of players you could take from one team. So Yvon Cornwallier has decided not to retire yet. He's sticking around for another year at least. And they've got him. They've signed Joey Mullen as a free agent. And they've got some, second, third line types from the good Montreal teams in the late 70s. Pierre Mondu, Doug Risebrough, and have Bob Bourne from the Islanders. So up front, they're pretty good. Defensively, that's awful. That's worse than any of the actual expansion teams, or the WHA teams that were in their first season in the NHL at this point. Mike Busniak is the top defenseman on that team. So I don't know how that's going to work out for them. But that's the NHL. So Jeff, they're off to a start. And their season started. We'll check back them because we're mainly focusing on the WHA, and we'll have a look at the NHL maybe halfway through the year. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, for someone who's maybe not familiar, and because we're playing back 40 years, when you say some of these names, I'm going to try and poke you with questions so you can help explain who they are. So, for instance, you highlighted Joey Mullen. What would somebody who's maybe more a casual hockey fan know Joey Mullen from?
First, Joey Mullen was undrafted, played in New York, grew up playing, I think, roller hockey in New York City, and was one of the first American players outside of the traditional, hockey areas, Minnesota and New England, to have a big impact on the NHL. Came in as a free agent, signed with St. Louis, and went on to a Hall of Fame career. And in this one, so he's jumped in about, I think, a year earlier than he actually did, and has gone to New Jersey. So we'll see how that works out there. What we've done, what we've done in the WHA was added Houston back in, which had gone out of business in the real WHA a couple of seasons prior. So they're back, and what they're doing is kind of typical of what we're seeing in the WHA, the way we've set it up here for this new season that never actually was in real life. They've signed, let me sort it by age, and look at all the teenagers. 6 19-year-olds, 1 17-year-old, Chris Chelios. Nobody knew who Chris Chelios was at this point. In real life, it was a few years, I think. I can check his real stats in the game. Yeah, it was 83 before he actually showed up with Montreal.
Best known for destroying a hotel room at the 98 Olympics, right?
And playing until he was 103 years old.
And just to go back to Joey Mullen for a second, he was I believe 3 times Stanley Cup winner, right?
Yep, with the Penguins. Penguins? Anybody
Twice with the
else?
Penguins and once with Calgary, I think, right?
Calgary, yep. Right. So, yeah, there's Houston. So what I was saying was they're basically signing a lot of guys who aren't eligible for the NHL yet, because the NHL is, I think, still drafting 20-year-olds, I think, this year. May switch to 19 next year. I think, yeah. Oh, no, actually, it was probably 19 this year. Then it will go to 18 next year. So the WHA can still jump on these guys a year earlier, and they've done that. So what you're going to see in the WHA is a lot of very young teams. And it remains to be seen whether or not all these young players are going to stick around more than a season or two, or are they just going to wait until their contract runs out and then go sign a big contract in the NHL? We've got one guy like that, right? Well, one guy who's 117-year-old. Whoops, it's not us. That's Houston again. Brent Sutter, who we signed. He's still 17, and he's really got no business playing in the league at this point, where we've actually stuck him in just because we've got a few injuries. And we've also picked up a few other guys, future NHLers, Brent Ashton, 19, and signed a few Finns. Jari Kurri, Roger Ruotsalainen, Pekka Radicalio, who had played in the WHA before, but our Finnish guys shouldn't be lonely. There's a few of them around. And just having a quick look at the rest of the league. Winnipeg has got a great team. They've kept their, well, not quite. They've lost some of the core of the good Winnipeg Jets teams in the WHA in the sort of mid-late 70s. Anders Hedberg and Ulf Nielsen have moved on to the NHL. But they've still got Kent Nielsen, and they've picked up some free agents and draft picks. Dave Christian, who was a Jet in real life, but it was actually playing for the U.S. Olympic team this year, the Miracle on Ice team in 1980, and we've got that Olympics coming up this season, so we'll see how that turns out with a lot of the guys who would be on that American team instead signing in the WHA. But yeah, this is a team that, if they'd had these guys, other than maybe the goalies, 2-3 years from now, they'd be competitive with NHL teams. But we'll see how many of those guys actually remain signed with them. And as like Adam said, we were off to a kind of a rough start, 1-2 in the first 3 games. What did we do? Oh yeah, right. We beat Edmonton in the opener, lost 4-1 to Indianapolis, which is where Wayne Gretzky is this season. And last season, it's a 17-year-old. He's 18 now, but got blown up by Winnipeg. So I think I'm just going to continue on here. Oh, I know what I was going to do before that. I noticed, looking at our depth chart here, we've got a few minor leaguers signed, but if things got pretty bad for injuries, and I've noticed this in a couple of saves we've had from users reporting problems or just passing on a save for us to have a look at to fix that. People seem to be going really light, particularly in historical mode, on the number of players on their farm team. That's kind of a dangerous game. If you get a few injuries, you may run into roster trouble, and you may have a lot of trouble filling that out. So I'm going to practice what I preach here and just sign a few free agents. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, we do have the WHA at this point has a roster limit of 40. Question, can you increase that roster limit in the offseason?
Yep. On July 1st, I'm able to go into the league. Well, I can't do it here because we're past July 1st, but that's a league edit screen. I'd be able to click on the rules button and adjust the roster size number of players we're allowed.
So you're clearly going to sign Grant Fuhr, right?
No, and I've got an explanation for that. Like I've been saying, I mean, you can see right here, if I sort it, Fuhr is obviously the best goalie in there, but he's 17 years old and half a star in ability right now, which is somebody that's got no business really playing in the league. So if I signed him right now, I've got a goalie who isn't capable at all of playing at this level. He is, in real life and should be still in junior for a couple of more years. It was 81, 82. I think it was his rookie year in the NHL. So if I sign him now, I mean, I'm going to get the guy with 5-star potential, but he's never actually going to play anywhere near to that level with me. He's probably going to maybe creep up. He's going to be in over his head for one, so that's going to hurt his development speed. He's going to maybe he'll get to 1 star for sure, then maybe 1.5, maybe 2 stars, at which point his contract's going to run out, and he's probably going to take off to the NHL. So
Okay.
what's the point of me signing that guy?
So
And
you're
it's
going to
probably going to be
sign
expensive. So what I'm going to do is look at somebody who's a little cheaper.
like Ace Bailey?
Well, I need a goalie at this point. I mean, I could sign somebody who's got a decently high potential. Brian Hayward, who didn't play in the NHL until I think about 83 or so, 82
I think
maybe.
it's him or Clint Malarchuk.
Yeah, another guy who was, he was, I think, 81. I think he had the same rookie year as Shearer, 81, 82.
But he's 1 star, so he could actually
Yeah,
play.
so these guys, well, it's still, the 1 star still isn't great. He's still going to be in a bit.
If we needed an emergency, he would be all
The
right.
other thing I have to take into account is if I want to send somebody down, we got caught on Sutter with this, is that I'm not going to be able to sign a 19-year-old and send him down to the AHL. I think with the AHL, we've got set to have a 20-year-old age limit. So
well, this wouldn't be the AHL, would it? It would be the
I think it's our teams in the Central League. I can't remember. It's
yeah. I'm trying to think.
Erie.
I was trying to
remember.
remember.
AHL.
I couldn't remember if that was. I was thinking it was the NAHL.
Oh, might have been. Yeah. The late WHA had a couple of teams in the NAHL, which is sort of a double A like East Coast not East Coast, ECHL level league. Maybe not even that good.
Oh, it was the EHL was what the Erie Blades were in.
Yeah. I think the Eastern League in the North, I can't remember how'd that work. One may have folded and the teams
Yes, the NHL became the NEHL, which became the EHL.
Yeah, the last version of the Eastern League. Okay, so what I want to do here is set a minimum age of 20 for the guys we're going to sign to fill out the minor league roster. And then I've also set the signable flag. And we got a Finnish goalie who's got half-star potential. Is there anybody who's at least a star? Gord Garbett, who I think he was a Stars, property of the Stars around this time. And I don't think he ever made it up. I think he might have had, he might have had 1 game with the Oilers, if I'm remembering right. It's either him or Jim Park, who's a WHA veteran but hasn't played in a couple of years. Garbett has slightly more upside, so let's go with him.
If he hasn't played in a couple of years, that probably means he's well rested.
Hasn't played in the WHA in a couple of years. I think Park is actually playing in the International League. Might have, probably at this point.
It could be.
And
now, a question we get lots, just because as you're talking about this, is when are minor leagues in historic are going to be playable? And if you can already tell from what Jeff and I are talking about, minor leagues in historical times of the NHL or WHA are confusing, to say the least. Is that a fair assessment there, Jeff?
Well, I mean, it's not a clear-cut thing where you've got, like they do the NHL is now, where you've got one AHL team for each NHL team. Well, usually that's some years. This year it's not like that because some teams aren't playing, and it's going to be, it may be weird again like that next year. But generally, but basically, the basic setup is one American League team for one NHL team. That's the farm team. There we go. And back in this era, there was the AHL, but there's also the Central League, which was pretty much the same level as the AHL. Some NHL teams have got their farm teams in there. There's also the International League, which sort of stepped back from that. The Eastern League, which they're around the same level as the International League, which the WHA has some of its affiliates in, and it's just a really ugly, confused, messy situation. But what was I doing here? Oh, I want to sign one more defenseman. Okay, see this. I'm going to grab Chris Kotsopoulos, who's future Ranger in real life. He's 20, old enough. And I'm just going to grab one of each forward position. And I think we got a chat question, too. I'll get that in a sec, Adam. Or were you going to say something else?
I was just going to say, talking about our favorite minor league team was the Roanoke Valley Rebels we had on a couple of years ago.
Yeah, lovely logo.
But yeah, so
So I'm just signing a few veterans here. Did I sign? I think I did that properly. Dan Jeffrion has been released by Quebec. It's a little surprising. And I'm just giving them, they're not asking for very much. I'm just giving them exactly what they want. And we will shuffle these guys down to our minor league team in Erie. Adam, what's the chat question? Can you read that to me?
the chat question from Sneaky's Snail is there a perfect team mode in FHM?
No, there's not. Not yet. Something we'd maybe like to do at some point, but it's a way off. We would need for one NHLPA license, which we don't have right now. We just have the NHL license. But it's something we'd like to do. It's perfect team is fun to play. It would be I'd say add an interesting twist to FHM.
You never know what the future may bring.
Yep. Why did I make Barry Melrose an assistant captain? That seems questionable in hindsight. So just shuffling my roster around a bit, sending a few guys down to make up. I've got to get one guy, move one more guy. Oh, good God, I should have paid more attention there. I signed a 1.5-star guy to a no movement clause. That was
smart.
No, it was not smart. Not smart at all. Oh, God, and he's got, well, at least he's super cheap. Dave Hudson, former Colorado Rocky.
Can you put him on the trade block? Probably should do that.
I'll leave it. He's not really hurting anything.
Well, if you get a decent offer or an offer that gets it, probably worth it.
True enough. I'll do it in a sec. Okay. And we can see since he's got that no movement clause, we can't shop him, but we can put him on the trade block, and maybe he'll be happy to take a deal somewhere else. And it looks like Norwich is healthy, so our injuries are running down. That's good. Now rebuild the lineup. I'm actually going to have to sit out Melrose, I think. And I will use Hudson in the game. But that seems a questionable role for him. Or is he just not really good at anything? He's not really good at anything, but he's a better counterattacking forward. We'll give him that job. And finally playing a game, and we come up 5-4 win over Quebec. And I'll move it along a little quicker from this point. I just need to get the roster stuff cleared up. That's not good. Robbie Ftorek, bruised cheekbone. Out day to day. So what the heck, let's go with a 17-year-old on our first line. And not surprisingly, we go down 5-2 to the New England Whalers. I said the Rangers, thinking of the Rangers. You want to comment on what's going on with the Rangers and Caps, Adam? Adam, you there? Oh, I think we lost Adam. We did get a trade. We did get a trade offer right away from putting Hudson on the trade block. Angelo Moretto. Who is Not as good as Hudson, but doesn't have that stupid no movement clause. So I will complete that and we'll grab Moretto, and that instantly solves that problem for us.
Sorry, Jeff. Had to step away for a minute.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Devil's 100 in the chat says one thing I want like about FHM is to see easy of modifying the game. What do you mean by that, Devils? Because I'm curious.
And Dave DeBall is back. So, well, injured, but better than playing Sutter, I guess. Oh, did I miss a jersey on?
Trying
Moretto,
to.
Did you? I don't know if you saw that, Adam. We got an offer right away for Hudson.
Oh, perfect. What'd you get?
Pretty much nobody. A guy named Angelo Moretto from was it Birmingham?
Perfect.
And we wind up losing 7-3 to the Gretzky-less Edmonton Oilers. Oh no, it was from Houston. They had the expansion team. So what are we? 2-4 to start the year. This is not good. I think as many players as we've added, we're still not quite competitive with the big guys. And a 4-3 loss to. Oh yeah, this is crazy. Have a look at the this defensive unit Birmingham has built up here. They start out with Craig Hartsburg and Rob Ramage, two of the better defensemen, NHL defensemen of the 1980s. But then they start signing more young guys. They get Mark Hardy, who was a pretty good defenseman for LA for quite a few years. Paul Coffey, Hall of Famer. Ray Bourque, Hall of Famer. So it's a ridiculous. I mean, most of these guys are only, the oldest of them is 20 years old. But just a stupid amount of defensive talent. I mean, that would be the best, easily the best NHL defense of the 1980s if it stays together, and if they're together in maybe 2-3 years.
Yeah, that is.
So that's what we got to compete against. Other teams are being super aggressive about signing free agents. So I think we've kind of got to be a little more aggressive about that next off season, assuming we still have a job at that point.
You mean you have to listen to Adam? Is that what you're saying? I think that's what you just said.
I never have to listen to Adam.
Always.
Okay. I think I've got the lines back to normal. I don't want Gustafsson all the way down the fourth line. Still trying to convert him to left wing. Yeah, that'll make more sense. So our first line should be back together, but we've got that crazy D in Birmingham, and we beat them 5-3. So they may be good, but they're still young, and Mike Liut has a big game with 40 saves. Winnipeg up next, and I got to make a point to start the backup Steve Baker a little more often this year. I think we burnt out Liut last season. Played him in 75, 77, I think it was, games. Way too many. And not surprisingly, with the backup in against Winnipeg, we lose 7-5. Put up a few goals at least. And one more game to... now somebody's hurt or suspended.
P-Wog, how dare you?
Radicchio out day-to-day with a bad back. Just swap Marty Howe in. And I really should be giving Sutter a game every once in a while, just so he doesn't completely collapse developmentally. And the Bulls to pick up a 6-4 win over us. So 10 games in, not looking impressive. We're 3-7. The only team we're ahead of is the Oilers, although we're just even with Quebec and expansion Houston. Mike Gartner having a pretty good season. He's number 3 in the league in scoring. You see Gretzky just way out in front. And looks like Claude LaRose is in Indianapolis, I think he had moved to the Rangers in real life at this point. and had a very brief career with him, but he's leading the league right now because he's playing beside Gretzky. And we got the expansion arrows up next. I think we should be able to get a win out of this. Shutout 5-0 by Andy Moog. And they outshot us badly too. Okay. So, really hope we don't get fired here.
Well, we told you. I already told you what we do if you do get fired.
What was that?
We sim to the end of the season. You take over a new expansion team.
Ah, there we go. Yeah. No, I don't think you did mention that. It's not a bad idea.
Yes, I did. It was okay. It was a couple weeks ago we were talking about this, but
well, I wasn't paying attention then.
Oh, ouch! Ouch.
Gretzky is the captain of Indianapolis already, and another 18-year-old. Yeah, look at this. The Indianapolis captains, Gretzky, Messier, and Lowe. So the future Oilers. And we come up with a 3-2 win over Gretzky. Another big game from Liut. Tom Williams, whose career is more or less over in real life at this point, gets a couple of points for us. Radicchio is almost back. So we got Houston again. And Radicchio is at 80% fitness, but he is injury-free now. So I can play him. I think I'm going to throw Sutter in just for this, just to get him a game here on the third line. And we lose again to the expansion team, 3-2. Okay, I think part of the problem here, maybe we've got Craig Norwich, who is just useless defensively and is mainly there as an offensive defenseman, but he's not putting up points, so why have him out there? Switch Marty Howe in. And Melrose for Poulin. That's Dan Poulin, who had a really brief career with the North Stars, not Dave Poulin, who was probably a better known player with Philadelphia and the Bruins a little later in the 80s.
That's what you'd say Dave Poulin is best known for, playing hockey, huh?
Wait, what was... I didn't like those defensive pairs.
So, Jeff, while you continue to make some adjustments, let's talk about the big NHL news that broke today, not incredibly long before our stream started. I guess, actually, no, it was this afternoon.
Yeah, well, I mean, where do you start with that story?
Let's start with Chris Drury being promoted to GM and president of...
No, you got to right back. The crazy thing about all of this is if you go back to the beginning of it, 10 years ago, it comes down to that, one play, there's a loose puck, somebody gets a little overzealous about trying to dig it out, and a guy on the other team is a little too overzealous about, giving him a whack and stopping him from doing that. 10 years ago, that's where it ends, right?
Yes.
Nothing happens. Maybe somebody gets a little bit of a fine, gets a penalty. But, worst case, there's a fight at the end of the game. It's all straightened out. Now, so Wilson takes a shot at Buchnevich, and Artemi, Panarin, of all people, the Rangers' best player, weighs all of 168 pounds, decides to take things into his own hands and go after Wilson with predictable results, even though, Wilson probably did something pretty dirty that wound up resulting in Panarin getting injured, but Panarin shouldn't have been in there in the first place. Somebody else on the Rangers should have taken care of that. And so you got all the Rangers, the Rangers are upset. The fans are screaming for a penalty, for a long suspension for Wilson. He winds up only getting a fine because you look at it, it's kind of hard to really pin anything on him other than maybe he pulled Panarin's hair. But, that had,
I'm not sure.
What are you going to say?
I said, yeah, I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, debatable. But, the Rangers are convinced it happened, though, so they're upset. And they decide to the league decides, says, okay, you get the fine, but there's not going to be any suspension. Rangers are outraged. Rangers fans are outraged. Twitter is outraged. The damn thing's even showing up on TMZ. It's the front page of Reddit. This is the biggest news. I mean, has anything else been this big a news in the NHL this year? Outside of the sports media?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Has there been anything that's really broken into the mainstream media besides that? So this story is everywhere now. The league is starting to look bad. The Rangers are freaking out and issue this statement from the team criticizing George Peros, the director of player safety, and demanding his resignation. And oh God, Gretzky just killed us. 5 points in an 8-1 win over us.
Now, see, the interesting thing about this, which I said is not tied to it, so take from that what you will, but they said that Gordon and the president, whose name is escaping me at the moment, John Davidson, were trying to make waves saying that they were not involved with.
Yeah, when the Rangers come out and call for Peros to be fired. But immediately, not immediately, by the next day, you're hearing rumors that their president and their general manager are distancing themselves from this statement they made. Basically saying, this is our crazy owner saying something, don't blame us, please, we don't want to be suspended. So what does James Dolan do today, this afternoon? Fires both of them.
Well, again, there's been more reporting on this from TSN and from Sportsnet in Canada that said some of this has been brewing for weeks, which I actually kind of get. And
yeah, it's a little too convenient, the timing, though.
They've since promoted Chris Drury, as I said, to kick it off, to president and GM, former NHL player. But they said part of it too, and I have to wonder, because I do believe this, is Drury has been requested and for this job before, and I wonder if some of this is wanting to keep him in the organization more than the other guys too. So,
I mean, but they only Davidson's only been in that job for not even 2 years, is it?
Yeah, it's been about that.
2019, I think they signed him.
He's never been anywhere that long other than Columbus. I mean, he was in St. Louis.
He's generally, pretty respected guy. So if he's...
Well, it was a great homecoming for him getting to the Rangers. And how often does that work out?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. That's
a good word for it. Interesting. Farcical. That would be another word.
I don't know if I'd quite go that far. But...
circus-like. But I mean, like I said, getting back to it, 10 years ago, this is just an in-game event that nobody notices, and we lost to Houston again. Oh, man. At least we kept the shots down.
So what's your job security looking like at this point?
Do we really want to even look at that? Okay.
Absolutely we do.
Yeah, we're halfway through the month. We got a 5-game losing streak. You can see the fan happiness is declining sharply. Team is still holding together. And I'm orangish in job security. Might be able to hang on through this season, but decent chance to get fired in the off season. And for some reason, we're doing relatively good against Indianapolis. Other than that one embarrassing blowout, we take them to overtime at least before losing in it. Oh yeah, we're 21 games, so I might as well look now. Let's take a look at the stats and just try to figure out what's going on here as we're 6-15. So Gartner is scoring just fine. Game rating is a little lowish for Torek. So the first, well, Gustafsson's only got 2 goals, but the first line's doing fine. Curry, who's only 19 at this point, he wouldn't be in the real NHL for another season, is doing reasonably well for a rookie. Ruotsalainen, likewise. Dave DeBall, not really expecting a lot out of him, so that's a reasonably good performance. It looks like it's the lower end of the roster that's yeah, see, just not getting secondary scoring at all. A bunch of guys on track for 20 to 30 point seasons.
Disappointing.
Pekka Radicalio, who's supposed to be putting up points as a defenseman, although he's had a little bit of injury trouble, isn't really doing anything. Norwich is supposed to be an offensive defenseman because he can't play D at all. Has 4 points in 14 games. What's the goalie situation looking like? Yeah, Liut, yeah, basically the same as it was last year. Liut, 4.33 goals against average, which is terrible by modern standards. Not quite so bad in this era. At least the save percentage is up a bit. And I mean, it's not like we're going to be doing anything there. Liut's the goalie. There's no way we're going to find anybody else that good.
Dun, dun, dun. Pressure's on, Jeff.
Taking a quick look at the advanced stats, and I'll show you something else there in a second that's new. PDO. Oh, yeah. So, well, no, PDO's out. It's clustered around 100, which this is basically a rough indicator of how lucky the player's been. The low 90s, okay, Fatorik could be doing a little bit better. So most of that, you know, he's performing well as it is, even though he's off a little bit from last season, but that's not really on him. Corsi, which is kind of ironic because Jim Corsi is actually still playing in this league. I think he's back up in Edmonton. Have to look. But before he invented Corsi, we've actually got the stat in the game now. So Fatorik, yeah, there it is, first line again. Oh, Norwich is actually doing reasonably well, according to Corsi. Maybe I'm not giving him quite enough credit. But again, yeah, the bottom half of the lineup is what's falling apart. And the new thing we've got here, it's going to be, this is the open beta version of the upcoming update, which is probably going to be coming very, very soon to everybody. You can, if you have the Steam version, you can check out the open beta now and see the new features, and you'll let us know if you've run into any problems with them. But the official version will probably be out in the next few days, more or less. Maybe even sooner than that. But what we've added here are zone starts. We had this stat track already for individual players, but we've added, you can see it. We've given you a way of seeing that at the team level now, and that basically just tells you what percentage of the number of times the player is on the ice for a face-off in our offensive zone. That's offensive zone starts there, and then defensive zone starts. The number of times players been on the ice for, you know, a face-off that's occurring in our defensive zone, and then the split percentage-wise is, you know, shows you the comparative level of the two of them. So, of all non-neutral zone face-offs that Tom Williams has been on the ice for, 55% of them are in the defensive zone. So he's usually starting out from the far end of the ice, and you can see, because we're not a very good team, the percentages all tend to run above 50% for defensive zone starts. If I went in and looked at, say, who's doing well, well, might as well look at Gretzky in New England. If I look at this for them, they're going to have mostly under 50, and probably a few guys with, oh, geez, they've got Adam Oates too. Really young Adam Oates, playing junior A at this point in real life, I think. Yeah, but he's got, 60, in the very little bit that he's played, is 60% of his face-offs, non-neutral zone face-offs, were coming in the offensive zone. But going back to us, the other thing we've got is, but no, yeah, there won't be anything in this now, but because we don't have shootouts in this league, but shootout tracking, attempts and shots made. Goals created, which is sort of a rough approximation of what what value the players contribute offensively. That's something you can, I think, a few different sites make use of it. But what we originally added this, we were hoping to add, what's the name of the stat? Trying drawing a blank on it. It's something that Hockey Reference has come up with.
I know what you're talking about, but I cannot think of it either.
Point shares. That's what I'm thinking of. We were trying to enable point shares, but ran into some problems mechanically with the way the game works. That we can't do it right now. Well, we could do it, but it would slow things down ridiculously. It would take this screen would take like over a minute to generate. So we're going to take another run at that in our off season, such as it is, and try to find a way to make that work in FHMA, because it's a neat little stat. I think it tells you about a little bit more than what goals created did. Although goals created isn't a terrible measure of overall impact. And the last but not least, the thing that's been asked for quite a while, we finally managed to get into the game, the first star, second star, third star selection tracking. So when a guy's selected the star at the end of the game, it gets recorded in here, and we've also got a simple point system. This is, if you remember the old Molson Cup, which was the original, or well, not the original 3-star sponsor. I think that was Esso. But in the 70s and 80s, the Molson sponsored the 3-star selections for the Canadian teams, and then had a competition where you would total up the points for the star selections at the end of the season, and he'd win this Molson Cup trophy, and I guess a little money or something, I assume. But that's the point system we're using. 5 points for first star, 3 points for second, 1 for third, and Fatorik is leading us right now. Pretty much what you'd expect, because we're getting very few of these selections. Again, if I go over to Indianapolis, Gretzky's, geez, look at that. 56. Our best star selection guy was, 13? Gretzky's got 56 star selections, 9 first stars already.
Seems about right.
How many games has he even played? 21 games Gretzky's played, and he's been the first star in 9 of them. Insane. So he's just dominating this league, and we'll see if Indianapolis is able to keep him around. But the whole point of all of that was try to figure out what's going wrong here, and it seems to point to problems at the lower end of the lineup, which unfortunately I don't really have any great solutions to. I could shuffle Roland Stoltz down to the farm team and call up Danny Jeffrey on. Might as well do that from the depth chart. It's easier to work from this screen. Yeah, not much else to do.
It's pretty tough.
I think we may need to. Problem is, the only draft that's left for the WHA at this point in the game is a single round draft, so I can't really stock up on draft picks at the trading deadline. I can probably grab a couple of younger players, maybe. That might be worth a try, because I'm really thinking about next season at this point. This one's a write-off.
That's assuming you're still controlling this team next.
Well, try to be optimistic. I'd like to keep control of them. It's a young team. I'd like to see how long I can keep these guys together. Okay, Houston again. Come on, at least get a win this time. There we go, finally. 5-3 win. Although that looked like more the product of a bad game from Andy Moog in Houston. And naturally, that costs us Fatorik. How bad is he injured? Please don't let it be bad. It's bad. Strained MCL, 1 to 2 months. Well, he is right out of the lineup. Onto the injured list. And I don't really have a center to replace him. Might as well call up Byron Shutt as the extra player. All right, he's got a... He was suspended at the start of the year, and he's still got to kind of serve that NHL suspension.
Nice.
And Howe's managed to get himself a minor injury as well. The hell with it. I'm just going to put Sutter in the lineup. I don't think he's going to do very well, but... And that's effectively the end of our season, or losing our best player at that point. We're getting crushed 8-1 by the Jets. Morris Lukowicz with 7 points.
Just no breaks, huh?
Yeah, this is going to be. I just got to try and win a game once in a while, because it's the losing streaks that tend to trigger coaching changes in the game. And wow, Steve Baker, spectacular game, 51 saves. As we pull out a 2-2 tie with league-leading New England. Liu back in against Edmonton, who's having kind of a rough time this season as well, but they beat us 6-4. Oilers not doing well because pretty much all of the key players they would have had in the NHL have gone over to Indianapolis. There's a 1980s. Well, it's not quite the 1980s yet, but it's an 80s score for you, Adam. 10-6, lost to the Jets.
Yeah, that is a 1980 score.
Touchdown and a field goal against 2 field goals.
Or 3 field goals and a rouge.
Playing Canadian football.
But you mean not everybody watching the stream will have, or watching this video on our YouTube channel will know what a rouge is?
How'd you explain it to him, Adam?
All right, for football fans, the Canadian Football League is a football league based in Canada.
As the name would indicate.
Yes, it has 3 downs instead of 4. It has a larger field, both in terms of length and width. And some of the rules are different, including a rule that if you miss a field goal and it goes through the end zone, or the ball stays in the end zone, or if a punt goes through the end zone, you score 1 point, also known as a rouge. Although most people just call it 1 point.
So no fair catches like in the NHL. And our new guys, Danny Jeffrey.
Wait, fair catches like the NHL? What?
Oh, sorry, NFL. I thought I said NFL.
Yes. No, there is fair catches. They're just harder to do. Well, they've changed the rules a bit. So now instead of having fair catches, you have to give a guy 5 yard space.
Yeah. No yards.
Yeah.
And no, you can't just take the penalty and plow into him regardless. That's is that 15-yard penalty for that?
Yes.
Hey, we finally beat the Jets 4-3. So we're managing to keep out of last place. For some reason, that's Quebec, surprisingly, because they were doing reasonably well up till this point. Wow, this is... We basically got the haves and the have-nots in this league, because there's a 16-point gap between 4th and 5th.
Oops.
Birmingham, New England, Indianapolis, and Winnipeg are doing well, and Edmonton, Houston, us, and Quebec are terrible. So we need to get some more expansion teams in, obviously, to skim off the players from the top teams and give somebody for the bottom teams to beat. But, oh wow, no, we beat Quebec 3-1. Did we just win 2 games in a row? It's the last time that happened. And
quite a while ago.
Looks like Indianapolis might have gotten shut out because Gretzky's had a goal and assist streak both shut down. But Birmingham, I'm not liking our odds here. Well, it's close, 3-2 loss. Future Hall of Famer Michel Goulet with 3 points. Anybody we got to put back in the lineup? Oh wow, Byron Shutt jumped up to 2 stars. I should mention here that the star ratings you're seeing are relative to the WHA, so it's slightly more generous than they would be if you were looking at the NHL, from the NHL perspective rather. Try him out with Jari. Back to expansion Houston. Wait, why do we have Gartner on the 3rd line there? Yet another loss to the expansion team. And Dave Inkpen goes down for a couple of weeks, so that's a defenseman missing. But what was going on with those lines? I missed that. I don't know, when I redo them, Gartner's back to the 1st line as he should be. Sutter got a point yet? Oh, 2 assists in 14 games. That's about all you can expect out of him as a 17-year-old. And the Jets, who've had a little bit of success against, up again. Almost do it this time. 4-3 win, or 4-3 loss, rather. 4-3 win for the Jets. At least we're playing some of these games a little more competitive than we were near the start of the year, even with Fatorik gone. And Quebec back again, and we lose 6-3 to them this time. Real Cloutier with 5 points. And there you can see Jim Corsi, the guy who invented the Corsi stat, playing goal for Quebec it is. Thought it was Edmonton, but no, Quebec. Oh, and expansion Houston Aeros losing Al Hamilton, one of their better defensemen, for 5 months. And we have Marty Howe back again healthy. But we're playing against New England. And get crushed 7-2. Mike Antonovich with the hat trick. I was going to put Moretto in, but he's got a sore knee. Follow up against New England. I'll start Baker the backup. 7-0 loss this time. So we're just not competitive with any of these teams. When's the Olympics happening? February 12th. So we got a little, I don't think we'll get to that this stream. Will probably be the next one. Just one win against the expansion team would be nice. And we get a 3-0 shutout, finally. 38 saves by Michael Youth. Team didn't do too well in front of them, but the Youth stole the win for us. Okay, so Moretto is ready. Let's take Sutter out for a while. Probably getting overwhelmed. Inkpen in for Poulin. Redo the lines. Don't know why it keeps taking Gartner off that top line. It's actually a reasonable checking line we got for the second line, but you don't really want a checking line for your second line.
That's what it is. For now.
Yeah, until Curry gets better. Oh, Fatorik's almost better. But now Inkpen's hurt. How'd that happen? Bruised his ribs. Must have been in practice, I guess. So Melrose will get a game. And Fatorik is back completely healthy. That was faster than expected, I think. So Moretto out. Reset the lines. And I don't think, oh, we got to send somebody down here, which will have to be Moretto. Can we beat Houston with the Torrican? Make it two in a row against them.
All
Yes, we
right.
can. 5-3 win. Although Fedoruk doesn't really do anything. Dave DeBall from the second line gets a couple of points. And looks
Take
like
what you can get.
looks like they have to pull Andy. Oh wow, yeah, we were up 4-0 after 7.5 minutes. So we did all of our work in the first period, all 5 goals. They got a couple of late ones back. That didn't matter. And we've climbed out of last place at least.
Trying to save your job.
And I think the way we've got the playoffs set up, we've got it with where the top 5 teams make it. So theoretically, we could still squeeze into the playoffs, I think. Now Melrose is hurt. And a nice 4-1 win. Wow, Marty Howe with 4 points against the Oilers. Not really an offensive defenseman, but puts up the points there. And the annual player poll at the end of the year, or end of the calendar year. Not surprisingly, Gretzky dominating most of that. Marty Howe, somehow the most controversial player in the league.
Interesting.
There was a little bit of controversy when he and Mark joined Gordy in the WHA because Mark was underage, but not sure how Marty winds up being particularly controversial.
Maybe because he's playing with us.
Well, Gordy's retired at this point. Doesn't really matter to him. Gordy actually retired a season early in this game as opposed to when he did. In real life, he would have played this season out in the NHL. His last one. Paul Coffey already with the hardest shot in the league. Kind of worried about some of the key guys, particularly younger ones, that are losing development. The rating shouldn't be sliding back that soon. That's very worrying.
What's our trainer look like?
Fine. He's rated 20 in training.
All right.
And a nice 5-1 win over Quebec. Gardner with 3 more points. And we're up to 6th place. Board confidence update, January 1st. So it's a disappointing season so far. The team needs to improve significantly. And what do you mean the performance in the last few weeks confirms this impression? We've been 500 in the last 12 games. Come on, give us a break. At least we're improving a little bit. It's job security. Oh, job security is the darker shade of orange now. Fan happiness hovering about where it was. And we're coming up on the hour here, so I'll just play a little bit more. Maybe get us about halfway through the season. Gretzky and the Oilers going to throw Baker to the Wolves on this one because not optimistic about our chances here. Yeah, 6-3 loss. And it looks like Baker got pulled. But Quebec the next night. And we get a 4-3 win. Gustafsson with 3 points off the first line. Kurt Brackenbury, mainly known as a goon, gets a couple assists in the second star, and he actually went to the Olympics, but not as a hockey player. I think it was 90s. What year were the Athens Olympics?
Athens was 2004.
2004. Was that? Oh, maybe it wasn't the Athens Olympics he was at. He went there as a yachtsman.
2000 was Sydney.
Yeah.
96 was Atlanta.
I think you would have. Well, maybe you wouldn't. I got no idea how old you can be to drive a yacht in the Olympics. So maybe
I can't imagine there's an age limit on it.
Okay, now as if... Remember before I said the Fedoruk injury was bad? Well, this is worse.
You do.
Mike Liud has a grade 3 concussion. He's probably gone for the season.
Yep, time to trade. Maybe.
Trading deadline is Valentine's Day, a couple of days after the Olympics begins, and there's no Olympic break in this league, so it's a good thing we signed Gord Garbett as the fourth stringer, but we'll be bringing up Bob Janicic as the backup. Real life played for the Hawks and Kings a little bit. I'm surprised he has 4-star potential here.
4-star WHA potential.
Yeah, 4-star, not even 4-star WHA potential. Liud was hurt in practice. This is why you don't shoot high on the goalie in practice. Arguably our best player, and he's gone for the rest of the year.
We may be in trouble.
So we'll see. I mean, Baker was briefly the starter for the Rangers in, I think, 81-82. We'll see how he does here. Not well to start with. 7-4 loss against New England. Let's play one more game because it's against Houston. Give Bob Janicic his first WHA game. And we crushed them 9-4. So that's a good way to end up the stream. On a high note, despite the... And look at this. We're actually in a playoff spot right now. Although technically, if I'm going by winning percentage, I don't think we are. But just looking at the points, we're 1 up on Edmonton for 5th place, which would get us into the first-round play-in against the Jets. So
interesting.
I may yet make the playoffs this year, despite pretty much whatever can go wrong having gone wrong.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess you want to wind up here, Adam?
Sure. Thank you very much for tuning in to another Franchise Hockey Manager stream. We typically stream every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/OOTP Developments. All of our streams are archived on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/OOTP Developments as well. You can also reach out to us on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Franchise Hockey Manager. On Twitter, we're at Franchise Hockey, where you can also find a link to our official Discord. In our Twitter bio, you can also, of course, come on down to our official website, which is ootpdevelopments.com. Click on the community button in the top right-hand corner, which will bring you to our official forums and come talk about Franchise Hockey Manager 7, Out of the Park Baseball, Perfect Team, or anything else you wish to discuss. Jeff, did I miss anything?
No, I don't think. Well, other than the new update being almost ready to go, I think we're probably going to be releasing that. I think we're going to try to have that out by the end of the week, maybe even, that possibly outside chance of tomorrow. I've got to talk to Sebastian Malte about it and see if there's anything we want to wait on before we put out that final version. Because ideally we'll get the last version out, and then we won't need to do any hot fixes for it. But who knows? Always seems to be something that comes up. So it'll be the last version that adds any significant amount of new content to the game. So if you haven't seen the list, the change list is on our forums on the Steam page. If you want to have a look at it and see what's upcoming, if you haven't got the open beta yet, but if not, that should be in your hands pretty soon. So thanks for coming out, everybody, and we will be back this time next week with Adam's San Jose Sharks game.
Woo.